1 with Miss Edwards. Today we'll be looking at the Integrated Science CSEC May-June examination that was done in 2016. So if you're here, it simply means that you're studying for your examination and you have come to the right place, because this is where we answer all the questions in the paper. So if this is your first time looking at an integrated science paper, remember you have 6 questions on this paper. There are no option questions, and your time is 2 hours and 30 minutes. So let's get straight into this paper to see what is there for us. All right, get your thinking caps ready. Section A, answer all 4 questions. It says Vanessa has a farm with orange and mango orchards. She plants corn and beans several times a year on this farm. It says state one asexual method of reproduction in plants. And asexual reproduction in plants is known as vegetative propagation, and this is budding, grafting, cuttings, and layering. Those are some of the methods of asexual reproduction in plants. Part 2, name one male part of the flower. And we know that the 2 male parts of any flower are the anther and filament. The next question asks, name one female part of the flower. And the answers can either be the ovary, the ovum, the stigma, or the style. Part 4, state 2 advantages of asexual reproduction. Advantages: 1, it is faster, more efficient in energy than sexual reproduction. And 2, only one parent is needed. That's 2 marks. The next part of the question says, Vanessa has been advised not to use pesticides that will harm the bees in the orchards. Suggest one reason why it is important for the bees to visit the flowers. Now, bees aid in pollination of flowers. Simple, right? And that's for 1 mark. This is a very easy question. If you've been looking at it, there are a lot of 1 mark questions. Part B, when Vanessa was pregnant, the scents from the flowers in the orchards made her nauseous even when she was in the house. Give a scientific explanation of how the scent travels from the flowers to the house. So think about what process you know in science that would help us to explain why the scent would travel from all the way to the flowers into the house. If diffusion comes to mind, you are correct. So the scent particles from the flowers, where there is a high concentration, right, travel through the air from the flower into the house, where there is a little concentration of the scent particles, and this is diffusion. All right, and that's for 2 marks. The next part of the question says, Vanessa does not want to have another baby, and after discussion with her husband, she has decided to use a surgical method. All right, so Vanessa doesn't want to have another child. She wants to use a surgical method. So it says state 2 advantages of the surgical method of contraception. 1, surgical method of contraception is highly effective at preventing a pregnancy. 2, easy to maintain as it is usually a one-time procedure. 3, it does not interfere with sexual intercourse. So even though they ask you for 2, I would have given you 3. Just in case you can't remember the 2 here, you have more than 2 to use. So those would be some advantages, and remember, advantages are the benefits. The next part of it says state 1 disadvantage of the method when you compare it to other methods, and I have given you 2. This method, surgical method, does not prevent against STDs and STIs, and 2, it is permanent and irreversible, right? So we have other methods that can prevent STDs and STIs, such as the condom and the diaphragm and all of that. But this one does not, and it's also permanent and irreversible. So once it's done, it cannot be undone. 3, it says part 3, explain the importance of the following significant changes that occur in Vanessa's reproductive organs when she is not pregnant. The lining of the uterus, or the womb grows and thickens, and menstruation. So it's basically asking you, why are these two processes important even when she's not pregnant? So one, when we're looking at the lining of the uterus or the womb, we know that throughout the month for the females, the womb, the wall of the uterus, right, it grows or it thickens. And the reason for this is because this is where a fertilized egg implants and grows and develops into a fully formed baby, right? The thickened lining of the uterus provides a nourishing environment and a suitable surface for implantation, and it's crucial for successful pregnancy. So even before you're pregnant, your body is preparing for pregnancy, right? And then the next part is menstruation. Why is menstruation important? And we know that menstruation is the same thing that is called period. Boys, do not get uncomfortable watching this video. You need to know about these processes as well. I have my boy student, my male students, and they are always shying away from the topic. I don't see why, right? But you need to know you plan to become husbands and you plan to have daughters, right? So it's a natural part of the reproductive cycle that signals the body's readiness for potential pregnancy, and it helps regulate hormonal balance, and it also helps to remove the uterine lining if you're pregnant, if there is no pregnancy. All right, so that's the importance for of menstruation, I should say, and that's 3 marks. Now we are onto our graph question. Now, if you know integrated science, you know that there is a graph in the first question. So you must be able to plot a graph. Persons watching, if you know that you are uncomfortable when it comes down to plotting graphs or using graphs, I suggest you take some time and do some practice before you get to the exam. Now it says a farm worker measures and calculates the average height of 3 corn plants over a period of 2 weeks and records the results in table 1. The average height of corn plants over a period of 2 weeks. It gives us the table, and in the table we have time in days and the average height in centimeters for each day. Right? So we're looking at the corn plants over a 2-week period. It says use the grid and scales in figure 1 on page 7 to represent the data in table 1. All right. 2, on figure 1, draw the best straight line to show the trend. Extend this line to cut the x-axis. 3, label the axes on the graph. And 4, state an appropriate title for the graph. Now, I would have given you this, and I always say to my students, once it comes on to the title, you can always kind of get the answer for this from the title of the table that they give you. So all you have to say is the graph showing, and you put the information back that was in the title for the table in your title. So I have graph showing the average height of corn plants over a period of 2 weeks, which is the same thing that is in the table. All right, so I would have given it that 1 mark. What I'm going to ask you to do, grab a graph sheet or get a paper and pen. You're going to use this information here and you're going to plot this graph. I want you to pause the video, plot the graph, and then I'm going to show you what it should look like and how we find the trend. All right, waiting for you to try this on your own. All right, if you pause the video and you would have tried it, let us go and look at how the graph should be structured. All right. Now this is our graph. In integrated science, most of the time, they will label the axes for you. And when I say label, I mean they'll put in the scales for you. But you have to write what is being represented on each side. Sometimes they even do that for you. But they really just want you to be able to plot the points and get the data, all right? And sometimes they're going to have to make up the scale. So just make sure you can do a proper graph. So on the x-axis, which is the one here at the bottom of the graph that runs horizontally from right to left, from left to right, right to left, same thing. We start at 0 right here in the corner. It goes from 0 all the way up to 18. So looking in our table, we know that the piece of data that would best hold on that part of the graph would be time in days, because it goes up to 14 and the average height goes up to 9.8, which is 10. So that would hold on the other axis, which is your y-axis, the one that runs vertically. So we're going to plot the points. If you're looking at the table, right, it says that on day 2, the plant was at an average height of 1 centimeter. So people remember how we find our points now. You find where they intersect on the y and the x-axis. So if on day 2 here, right, it says that the plant was measuring an average height of 1, it simply means let us take our time and go all the way up until we see where it meets 1 on the graph and go across to make sure that this is where it intersects. That is your point. On day 4, it says that the plant had a height of 1.9. So we're going up. If this is 1 and this is 2, how you find 1.9, right? Look closely. If this is 1, this is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. 0.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9. You make your point and you circle. So people, the smaller lines or the smaller divisions in between should help you break down the amount of units which are in between. On day 6, it said that the plant measured a height of 4.0, and that's what we have on the graph right here, right? 4.0 for day 6. On day 8, there was a measure of 7.2. On day 10, right, it measured a height of 8.6. Day 12, sorry, that was day 12. And on day 14, it measured a height of 9.8. So when we are looking for points to plot on a graph, you use both scales, whatever is on your x-axis and whatever is on your y-axis, to determine your points. Now that is worth 4 marks. The next part of the question asked us to draw the best straight line to show the trend, and you must extend the line to cut the x-axis. So this is what we did, people. We drew the straight line, the red one. Let me zoom out so you can see how it goes all the way up, right? It should start at the origin and go all the way up as it extends on your graph paper, right? So your best straight line, young men and women, must be drawn with a ruler. So please make sure you go to your exam with a ruler. And then the next part of the question asks us to determine the height of the plant on day 11. Now, in the table, it doesn't give us any information for day 11. So what we need to do is use the graph to figure out what height the plant might be measuring at day 11. So what you do, you find where day 11 is on your graph right at the bottom. And where we have our blue line, you draw a line from that day all the way up until it touches your line of best fit. The same straight one that you just drew. Wherever it touches it, you're going to bring it across to find the height. And that was about 7.8 centimeters, right? And that is how you would get your information. If they ask you for something that is not in the table, you must do it like that. You go to your graph and you find the information. And then the last part says, how long after planting did the corn plants emerge from the soil? Since we have here in the table that we're measuring average height on day 2, I would have assumed that the plant emerged on day 2. All right, lovely people. Please go practice graph if it's not your strongest area. Let's go. It says question 2, and we know that question 1 is always worth 25 marks. Question 2. Tropical islands experience alternating periods of sunshine and rain. Figure 2 shows a tourist at a recreational poolside. The arrows 1, 2, and 3 represent processes in the water cycle, while the box at IV represents a state of water. So they're asking us, what are the processes happening at I, III and IV. What are the processes happening there? So I should be precipitation. II, right here, where we have a pool and the arrow going up, evaporation. 3, going from the plant to the atmosphere, transpiration. Right? And what state of matter would water be in at state or part 4? If water is here, it would be as water vapor, which is a gas. So precipitation, evaporation, transpiration, and the state of water is a gas. That's worth 4 marks. It says during sunny periods, the owner of the poolside facility notices that his plants look wilted, especially at noon. Suggest one way by which he could prevent his potted plants from wilting throughout the day, and give a reason for your answer. Now, what he could do is water the plants deeply. So when you water, ensure that the water reaches the roots. This encourages them to grow deeper and be more drought tolerant. Or 2, you could also water in the morning. This would allow the plant to absorb the water before the heat of the day. That would cause the excessive water loss or transpiration, and that's 3 marks. Part C says, state 2 reasons for adding chlorine to the water in the pool. Now, 2 reasons why we add chlorine to the water in the pool is to for the chlorine to act as a disinfectant, killing bacteria, viruses, and other harmful microorganisms, which helps to prevent the spread of diseases. And another reason too is that chlorine helps to keep the water clear by preventing algae growth. You know, those little green bits, right, that we see on stagnant water. Chlorine helps to keep them away and also helps to break down dirt so that your pool doesn't become dirty. Part 2 suggests 2 ways in which the owner of the facility can use the water when he empties his pool. Now, the answers would be the water can be used to wash the vehicles, and it could also be used for domestic cleaning. So, scrubbing away concrete, scrubbing the tiles, the floors, washing equipment. State 1 safety precaution that must be taken when the pool is being chlorinated. That's common knowledge. You must wear protective gear such as goggles and make sure the area is well ventilated, because we know chlorine has a smell, and that's 1 mark. Part D. The poolside facility is located close to the sea. The following organisms were observed in the sea: seaweeds, kingfish, herring, and aquatic insects. In the box provided below, you're going to draw a food chain to show the feeding relationships among these organisms. Please pause the video and use your pen and your pencil and draw a food chain to show the feeding relationship. Remember, this is a grade 10 topic. This is something we should know from Form 2 or second form. So, food chain. You're going to use those organisms in the question to create the food chain. All right, once you've done that, let's look at the answer. So it would be the seaweed starting the food chain, the aquatic insects after, the herring after, and then the kingfish. Remember, for it to be a food chain, there must be arrows, and the arrows must be going in the correct direction. Remember, arrowheads show us what is doing the eating, and whatever is at the end of the arrow or behind is what is being eaten. And we always start with a producer or a plant, in this case, or seaweed. That's 2 marks. And I showed you the answer already. Name the source of energy in the food chain. It would be your seaweed. 15 marks for that beautiful question. It wasn't a hard question at all. All right, this is a blank sheet. Let's go. Question 3. It is necessary to brush your teeth with toothpaste after meals. If this is not done, then the pH level in the mouth may fall below 5.5, and this may damage the enamel of your teeth, resulting in cavities. Joan and Cindy are identical twins. The dentist finds that Cindy has fewer cavities than Joan. Suggest 3 habits other than brushing teeth regularly that may have resulted in Cindy having fewer cavities. So instead of just brushing, what else can be done to prevent cavities? We have flossing regularly, having a well balanced, healthy diet as well, rinsing after eating acidic foods like sour foods, and eating fewer sweets and juices and sodas. That could be added as well. So B, Frank performs pH tests on 4 different brands of toothpaste, A, B, C, D, and obtains the following results. So brand A, 8.5, B, 9.0, C, 8.0, D, 5.0. It says name a substance that can be used to measure the pH of the toothpaste. The answer is universal indicator or pH paper. Now, if your teacher did this experiment with you in class, remember universal indicator is that substance or liquid substance that we can add to different substances, and upon touching or coming in contact with the substance, it should give us a color change. So universal indicator is the substance used for that, and pH paper, if you cannot remember universal indicator, can also be used. That's a strip of paper that changes color when you apply it to a substance to show us if it's acidic or basic. It says arrange the 4 brands of toothpaste in descending order of acidity. Most acidic comes first using the letters of the brand. So based on your knowledge of which numbers on the pH scale represent acidic and basic compounds, then we should know that we are going to begin with D. If it says we are putting the most acidic first, D would be the most acidic because it is 5.0. Then C would follow 8.0. Then A 8.5 and B 9.0. That's the order, and that would be your 2 marks. Remember, the lower the number, the more acidic, the greater the number, the more basic, and 7 is neutral. Part 3. Frank's teacher suggested that one of his results in Table 2 is incorrect. Identify the brand of toothpaste with the incorrect pH and give a reason for your answer. Now, it's clear as day that the toothpaste brand D is incorrect, as toothpaste is known as a basic compound and it would not have a pH below 8, as this would make it neutral or acidic, right? So remember, your pH scale measures from 0 to 14. From 0 to 6 is an acidic part of the scale, 7 is neutral, and from 8 to 14 is basic. So we know toothpaste is a base, so it would not have a pH of 5. Part 4 asks, state a possible reason that may have caused Frank to get the incorrect result. And his reason, the reason could be anything, but I put cross-contamination with an acidic substance. So maybe there was an acidic substance there and it just contaminated, and that's why it resulted like that. Part 5 says state the one component of toothpaste which helps to strengthen teeth. And if you know about toothpaste, you know fluoride is the compound there or component of your toothpaste that helps to keep your teeth strong. Part C says name one acidic and one alkaline substance present in the digestive system of humans. So one acidic substance, one alkaline substance. And alkaline there just means the same thing as a basic substance or base. Acidic would be stomach acid or hydrochloric acid, and alkaline substance would be bile. Those are your acid and alkaline substance. Name one enzyme in the digestive system that functions best in an alkaline environment. The answer there is trypsin. So trypsin is that digestive enzyme. It works best in an alkaline environment. Part 3, it says antacids are substances normally used to treat digestion problems. Explain the scientific principle by which the antacid treat these problems. Now, antacids relieve heartburn and indigestion by neutralizing excess stomach acid. You see that word there, neutralizing? It just means that they have an acid, which is in the stomach now, and the antacid would be a basic compound. And once you mix an acid and a base, it causes a neutralization reaction. And this just creates water and a salt, which it helps to soothe or breaks away the effect of the acid. So that is how the antacid works. The antacid is base, the stomach is the substance in the stomach is acidic. Once you drink the antacid, the base and the acid in the stomach combine together and gives you water and a salt, which relieves the heartburn. Good. Now, part 4 says advances, or question 4 says advances in technology have led to the manufacture of solar-powered vehicles. State one advantage and one disadvantage of using solar-powered vehicles. So, an advantage: solar-powered vehicles don't release any pollutants to the environment or the atmosphere. So that's a plus. And the disadvantage now is it is inefficient in bad weather. So if it's solar, it works best in bright sunlight. But if you are going out on a cloudy day or a rainy day, you might not be able to make it home, or you might not get to your destination, right? So the car, that would be its disadvantage. It's inefficient in bad weather. Part 2 suggests 2 energy conversions that may occur in a moving solar-powered car. Remember, energy cannot be created or lost, but it is transferred from one form to the next. Solar energy from the sun becomes electrical energy. So that's one conversion. And then the other conversion would be the electrical energy moves and becomes kinetic energy, which is when the car is moving. If you have not covered energy as yet, I suggest you go and cover energy, do some practice questions on energy, try. Now it says Carson performs an experiment to determine the effect of friction on the distance traveled by a toy car. He first places a toy car on a smooth surface, applies a force of 10 newtons, and records the distance traveled. He then places the toy car on a rough surface, again applies a force of 10 newtons, and observes the distance traveled. The results are shown in Table 3. The results of experiment to determine the effects of friction on the distance traveled by a toy car. Identify the following variables: the manipulated variable, the type of surface, which is either rough or smooth. Remember, a manipulated variable is basically the two conditions which are being tested. The next part of the question asks us to find the responding variable. Which one would be the responding variable here? Remember, your responding variable is basically what you look at to determine your results. So what would be the results here? And then it also asks us for 2 controlled variables. Remember, controlled variables are anything that we keep constant in the experiment. So I want you to think about the responding and the controlled variables. Look at the experiment. Tell me. If you said that the responding variable is the distance traveled, you're correct. And the 2 variables held constant would be the amount of force applied, because it's the same, being 10 newtons, and it's the same car that is used. So those would help us to make sure that the results are accurate. Good? And that's 4 marks. Part 2, state the formula used to calculate the energy that is converted when cars move. And the formula is energy is equal to force times distance. And that is 1 mark. Now it says calculate the energy conversion of the car on the rough surface and on the smooth surface. So remember, we just looked at the formula. It says that force times distance. So please look at the force and the distance for the car traveling on the smooth surface and the car traveling on the rough surface. All right. All it says for you to do is to find the answer. So you should be able to calculate that quick and easy. 10 times 10 which is 10 newtons times 10 meters, would give us 100 Newton meter, or the unit for energy, which is the joule. Remember, CXE marks for your units. And the rough surface would be 10 newtons times 5 meters, which is 50 Newton meters, or joules. And that's 2 marks. It says, state what is meant by the term inefficiencies of machines. Now, an inefficiency means that a machine fails to produce the desired output with the least amount of input. So basically, your machine is just not doing the job that it's supposed to do. So you have a knife and it's not cutting your tomato. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's inefficient. It's dull, right? So that's what an inefficiency in machine means. It's not, the machine is not able to do the job it's supposed to do. Part 2 says, use your calculations in B above to determine which of the two surfaces the toy car is more efficient. Give a reason for your answer. So remember, we had the car on the smooth surface going at 100 joules, or producing 100 joules of energy, and the one on the rough surface only producing 50 joules. Now, it's the car on the rough surface that was least efficient due to friction from the rough ground, and this was because less energy was converted from the moving car. So, part 3, state one factor other than friction that contributes to the inefficiency of machines. So we have wear and tear. Remember, as soon as a machine gets older and older, it will rust and it will cause it to become inefficient. And also temperature can cause a machine to become inefficient. So if it's too hot or too cold, it can cause some problems. If at this point you have watched to this far in the video, please like the video, comment on the video, share the video with your classmates, send it to those who you know are going to be doing the exam. Remember, there are grade 1s for everyone, and you can achieve it. You can help someone else achieve a good grade in the exam as well. Thank you for watching so far. So let us move on to section B, and let's see if we can get through the rest of this paper. Part 2, or section B, right? Question 5. Name 2 structures in the respiratory system and 3 structures in the circulatory system. Now, your respiratory system, 2 structures, lungs and trachea. But I want you to think about the others as well. Think about your respiratory system. You have other structures there, your bronchioles, your bronchus, your alveoli. So remember those structures. And then your circulatory system, a lot of students, what I realized that you might be tending to do is think about just the heart when it comes onto the circulatory system. And then you might give me different structures of the heart. But remember, the heart is one part of the circulatory system on its own. The other 2 structures would be the blood and blood vessels. All right, that would give you your 5 marks just for listing structures, ladies and gentlemen. Part B says, Mr. Lan is a heavy cigarette smoker. He has been smoking cigarettes for the past 20 years. Explain 3 effects of this long-term smoking on his respiratory system. Now, 1, he could develop chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Now, if you can't remember all of that, remember COPD. And this is a group of diseases that make it difficult to breathe. COPD includes conditions like emphysema that damages the ear sac. So just know that COPD causes breathing difficulties. Second one, everybody should have thought about this, lung cancer. Smoking is the leading cause of lung cancer, a serious disease where abnormal cells grow out of control. The risk of developing lung cancer is significantly higher for smokers compared to non-smokers. And this includes vaping as well, students. We know that there are some students who are experimenting with vaping. Please be reminded that this can also lead to lung cancer. And the third one, chronic bronchitis. And chronic bronchitis is a condition where the lining of the airways become inflamed and produces excessive mucus, causing coughing and shortness of breath. So these are 3 long-term effects on his respiratory system: COPD, lung cancer, bronchitis. And that's 6 marks. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Part C, On a very hot evening, Mr. Land sits in his car, leaving the engine running as he enjoys the coolness of the car's air conditioning. This causes a buildup of air pollutants in the garage. Discuss two ways in which the garage can be designed to reduce this increased amount of pollution. So there are two ways he could have designed his garage. One, the garage should have high ceilings as well as windows on both sides of the room to create a draft of airflow to improve ventilation. This will prevent buildup of pollutants in the room. And then the second one is an exhaust fan. So he should install a strong exhaust fan in the garage to pull the exhaust fumes and prevent them from entering the home. And that's 4 marks. And that's the end of that question. And we have found ourselves at the last question in the paper. So let's look at this, and this looks like an electricity question. Abiola is using a portable pump to inflate her car tire. After she plugs it in, it makes an attempt to start, but immediately stops working. She looks at the label and reads the following information: voltage 12V, current 18A. The fuses in her car come with ratings of 10, 15, and 20. On check-in, she notices that the 15A fuse in the car burned out. State the function of the fuse and give one reason why Abiola should not attempt to replace it with aluminum foil. So what is a fuse? That's basically what it's asking you, and one reason why she should not use a piece of aluminum foil to fix the brake. Now, a fuse, its main purpose is to protect an electrical circuit and its connected devices from damage caused by excessive current, right, or an overload. The aluminum foil will create a pathway, if she uses it, to allow the overload of electricity to continue flowing. And then this can cause a damage to the circuit and would cause a damage to the pump and to the car. So when we look at a fuse, its main job is to protect our appliances from being destroyed from an overload of electricity. All right. Part B says calculate the power of the pump. Power is equal to voltage times current. Current is represented by A, which is ampere. Voltage represented by V, volts. And in the question, it says 12V and the current is 18A. So it says calculate the power of the pump. All we do is multiply V and A. 12V times 18A, which gives us 216. And the unit of power is the watt and the watts. And the question says you must include it in the answer. And that's for 4 marks, ladies and gentlemen. It says state 2 suitable materials from which the conducting wire can be made. And 2 materials that can be used to make wires are copper and aluminum. All right, 2 marks. Now it says Abiola notices that the headlamp of her car gives off a white light. With the aid of a diagram, describe how she can break up this white light from her headlamps into its component colors. So this should be what comes to your mind. Now in the exam, you will not have your crayons to color, but you would still be able to draw this diagram. So you should have an arrow, which is representing white light, heading towards a glass prism, that triangle there. And in the prism, you should have dispersion of the different colored lights that are in white light. And it should be in the order red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Roy G. Biv. If you remember that, you remember from primary school. And it says you must explain. So it says white light is dispersed through a prism because different colors of light at different wavelengths bend or refract at different angles as they pass through the prism. This bending is due to the prism's material having a varying index of refraction depending on the light's wavelength. Specifically, shorter wavelengths like violet bend more than longer wavelengths like red. And that's worth 7 marks. Now, if you have not reached this part of your syllabus yet, please just take a look around there just in case a question like this comes back. So guys, that's the end of our paper. We saw topics like reproduction. We saw topics about acidity, acids, bases, and salts. We saw questions on electricity, questions on lighting, questions on digestion, respiration, the circulatory system. We saw questions on energy. So, ladies and gentlemen, do not skip any topics. Even though there are topics that you prefer and topics that you like, remember that there are always going to be topics there that may not be your specialty, but it is best if you try to do something on the paper. So that was the end of the paper. Please remember to subscribe and share this video. Thank you for watching. This was the May-June 2016 paper. Remember, with God, all results can be distinctions.